What exactly is gravy? It's one of those things we pour over food without thinking twice. On mashed potatoes, rice, roasted meat. Yet if someone asked you to define it precisely, it's surprisingly tricky. Is it just meat juice? Is it a sauce? Or is it something more technical? Today, we're diving into the surprisingly rich story behind gravy, what it really is, how it's made, and why it exists in so many different forms around the world, right here on History of Simple Things. Gravy has been around for centuries, and its origins are closely tied to the evolution of cooking meat. The word gravy itself likely comes from the Old French word gravé, which referred to a seasoned sauce. As early as medieval Europe, cooks were already collecting the juices that dripped from roasting meats. These drippings were too flavorful to waste, so they were thickened with breadcrumbs or ground almonds and turned into sauces. By the 17th and 18th centuries, gravy had become a staple in European kitchens, especially in England. It was seen as a practical way to stretch meals, adding flavor and moisture to otherwise simple or dry dishes. Over time, techniques evolved, and flour became the preferred thickening agent. From there, gravy spread across cultures, adapting to local ingredients and tastes. At its core, gravy is a type of sauce made from the juices released by meat during cooking, combined with a liquid and thickened to create a smooth, pourable consistency. The key element here is flavor extraction. When meat cooks, especially when roasted or pan-fried, it releases fats, proteins, and brown bits known as fond. These components are packed with deep, savory flavor. To turn those into gravy, you typically add a liquid like stock, broth, water, or even milk, and a thickener, most commonly flour or cornstarch. The result is a sauce that captures the essence of the meat and enhances whatever it's poured over. So while gravy is technically a sauce, not all sauces are gravy. What sets gravy apart is its origin. It's directly derived from cooked meat or designed to mimic that same savory depth. The classic method of making gravy starts right in the pan where meat has been cooked. After removing the meat, you're left with drippings, fat and brown bits stuck to the bottom. Instead of washing the pan, you build on that flavor. First, excess fat may be skimmed or measured. Then flour is added to create a roux, which is essentially a paste of fat and flour cooked together. This step is crucial because it eliminates the raw taste of flour and creates the base for thickening. Once the roux is ready, liquid is gradually added while stirring to prevent lumps. As the mixture heats, it thickens into a smooth sauce. Seasoning is added last: salt, pepper, and sometimes herbs or spices, depending on the desired flavor. The entire process is quick but requires attention, as gravy can easily become lumpy or too thick if not handled properly. Gravy isn't a one-size-fits-all creation. In fact, it varies widely depending on culture, ingredients, and even personal preference. Brown gravy is probably the most recognizable. It's made from beef or chicken drippings and often served with roasted meats. Its deep color comes from the browning process and sometimes added stock. White gravy, on the other hand, uses milk instead of broth. It's common in Southern-style cooking and is often paired with biscuits or fried foods. Instead of meat drippings, it may use butter or leftover cooking fat as the base. There are also vegetarian gravies, which skip meat entirely but aim to replicate that same umami richness using mushrooms, onions, soy sauce, or vegetable stock. These versions highlight that gravy isn't strictly tied to meat. It's about achieving a certain flavor profile. Around the world, gravy-like sauces take on different forms. In some cuisines, they're thinner and more broth-like, while in others they're thick and heavily spiced. Despite the variations, the core idea remains the same, enhancing food with a flavorful liquid. Gravy isn't just about taste, it's also about function. Historically, it served as a way to make food more enjoyable and less wasteful. Instead of discarding the flavorful remnants of cooking, people turned them into something useful. It also improves texture. Dry foods like roasted meat or plain starches benefit from the moisture that gravy provides. This is especially important in dishes where the main components might otherwise feel heavy or bland. There's also a psychological element. Gravy adds richness and warmth, making meals feel more comforting and complete. That's why it often shows up in traditional or celebratory dishes. It enhances not just flavor, but the entire eating experience. One common misconception is that gravy always requires meat drippings. While traditional recipes rely on them, modern versions can be made entirely without meat. What matters more is the balance of fat, liquid, and seasoning. Another misconception is that gravy is difficult to make. In reality, it's more about technique than complexity. Once you understand how thickening works and how to build flavor, making gravy becomes straightforward. Some people also confuse gravy with other sauces like juice or stock. A juice is typically thinner and less thickened, while stock is a base ingredient rather than a finished sauce. Gravy sits somewhere in between. It starts with stock or drippings but is transformed into something richer and more cohesive. So, what exactly is gravy? It's more than just a topping. It's a clever culinary invention that turns leftover cooking juices into something rich, flavorful, and essential. It's rooted in history, shaped by practicality, and refined by technique. From its medieval origins to modern kitchens, gravy has remained a constant because it does something simple yet powerful. It makes food better. Whether it's poured over mashed potatoes, rice, or meat, it brings everything together into one satisfying bite. And once you understand what goes into it, you'll never look at that humble brown sauce the same way again. Thank you for watching. If you have suggestions for our next video, feel free to share them in the comments below. We'll be sure to give you an acknowledgement for your contribution. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the history of simple things. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories woven through the smallest details.